Hi friends, welcome to SNCA Study Club, a platform for CA final students. Today we are going to discuss investigation and due diligence. Here I am discussing the chapter along with the question. That is the points that is not asked in the question that I am discussing separately. Almost all questions of the practice manual, study material, past exam questions, mock test paper that I am discussing separately. Okay, so in that case you can understand how to answer the question and as well as the whole concept. Okay, so first of all we are discussing what is mean by this investigation. Investigation refers to a systematic and in-depth examination to establish a fact or to evaluate a specific situation, right? So investigation is not equal to audit. Investigation involves systematic and in-depth examination. Each point have to be clearly examined by the investigating accountant. Okay, so this is mainly for the purpose of establishment of a fact, which is implies that they have to obtain what? Conclusive evidence and not persuasive evidence, which is stating that it is not equal to audit, or it is mainly for the purpose of evaluation of a specific situations. Example, investigating whether fraud is occurred or not, whether the land valuation is conducted appropriately. Investigation of profitability, whether the profitability that is showing in the financial statement is correct or not, etc. These are examples. Okay, then now we have to discuss what is the difference in between audit and investigation. First of all, objective. What is the main objective of investigation? To establish a fact. That is, you should provide or you should answer as the meaning. That is, investigation refers to a systematic and in-depth examination of fact or a systematic and in-depth examination to establish a fact, or it is a evaluation or specific examination of a specific situations. Okay, audit means it is an independent examination of financial statements of an entity, whether profit oriented or not, irrespective of the size and legal form where such examination is conducted, to express an opinion thereon. So these are the difference. Then scope. Investigation can be statutory or non-statutory, but audit, that is statutory audit, should be subject to the provisions of applicable laws, right? Time frame. There is not have any time frame with respect of investigation. There is not have any rigid time period, but with respect of audit it can be quarterly, yearly, etc. Right friends? Then legal requirement. Investigation is voluntary. That is, may or may not undertake investigation. There is not have any legal requirement to conduct investigation, but with respect of audit, especially with respect of the company audit, it is mandatory. Otherwise it is not mandatory, right? Then who shall perform the investigation and who shall perform the audit? Investigation shall be performed by a person who is not a member of institute. That is, he may or may not be a chartered accountant, but audit have to be performed by a member of institute having certificate of practice as per CA Act 1949. I have already discussed the same, and I am expecting that you have gone through it and you are able to understand what I discussed now. Okay, then type of evidence. We know that in audit, persuasive audit evidence is possible, that is prima facie evidence, but in investigation there is required to obtain what? Conclusive evidence. Then reporting. To whom report shall be submitted by the investigating accountant and to whom the report shall be submitted by the auditor. In investigation, the report is submitted to the authority who has appointed the investigated accountant, or who is required the investigated accountant to conduct the investigation. In audit, the report is submitted to the owners. Plus 143(12) fraud reporting. That should be kept in mind with respect of the statutory audit, that is mean company audit. I hope you remember the same. Okay, so reporting is, in case of investigation, it is submitted to the authority under whom the investigation is conducted, that is who has appointed the investigating accountant. Then audit, the report should be submitted to the owners. Then inherent limitation. Investigation, there is not have any inherent limitation, but audit there exists, we know that. Okay, so here we discussed what is mean by investigation, difference between auditing and investigation. Moving towards next point. here we are going to discuss the different steps that is involved in investigation. First of all, determination of objective and scope. He is the investigating accountant. Before accepting the investigation, he have to understand what are the main objective, that is with respect of which they have to conduct the investigation, plus scope. These can be determined by making a discussion with the concerned person, okay, or concerned parties. Discussion. They have to determine these objectives and scope in written form. These objective and scope have to be clear, right? Plus they should also determine the time period up to which they can conduct the investigation, or the the time period in which they have to submit the investigating report. So first of all, they have to determine objective and scope by making a discussion with the concerned parties. These objectives and scope have to be determined before accepting the investigation proposal. Plus they have to determine the time period up to which they can conduct the investigation and time limit within which they have to submit the investigation report. Then last one is that the objectives and scope have to be in, they have to determine in the written form, plus these have to be in clear, okay. Then investigation program. After understanding these objectives etc., they have to formulate the investigation program. It has to be flexible, plus it should be formulated by focusing the important areas. This has to be depends upon the nature, size of the concerned party, right? Then collection of evidence. We have already discussed that the evidence of investigation have to be conclusive evidence. They have to obtain conclusive evidence because they have to establish a fact, not an opinion. So it should not be a pervasive evidence or a prima facie evidence. It has to be conclusive evidence. Then analysis. After making proper analysis, they can report to the concerned party, okay. So here we discuss the different steps involved in investigation: objective and scope determination, investigation program formulation, collection of evidence, analysis, and last one is reporting, okay. These are certain important questions with respect of investigation and due diligence. Whether investigator required to conduct 100% checking on all items. This is mainly depends upon the nature of investigation. Suppose it is mainly for the purpose of determination of the profitability. In that case, it is not required to make 100% checking on each and every item. But if it is with respect of investigation of cash defalcation, they should apply what? 100% checking on each and every item. Next question is what? 100% reliance on auditor financial statement. Can investigator put 100% reliance on auditor financial statement? So check nature of investigation. Is that investigating accountant is appointed for the purpose of determining any fraud in the financial statement, plus it is because of any doubt arised in the auditor financial statement. In that case, they can't put 100% reliance, otherwise there is no problem. Expert assistance. Next question. Can investigating accountant obtain assistance of an expert? They can obtain, but before obtaining the expert assistance, they have to obtain written consent from the client or the party who is making their appointment. Then futuristic statement. Can investigator be futuristic? This is the question. So investigator should refuse to be futuristic, but at the same time they can rely upon the trend, or they can expect that the situation that is existing in now or in this current scenario will be continued in the future, but they can't be futuristic. We know that in auditing we have already discussed that standard, but there is not having that much of difference in between investigation and due diligence with respect to futuristic statement. They are also not to be allowed to be futuristic, but they can assume that the existing scenario will continue in near future. Then working papers. Just like auditor, investigator may also prepare and maintain their working paper. Okay friends, we are moving towards the first question. Okay, before moving towards the first question, I am going to explain you what is meant by this due diligence. Suppose ABC is making the purchase of BCD. Before making that purchase, this due diligence, the purpose of the due diligence is to assess the investor or purchaser. He is the investor or purchaser. Assess the investor or purchasers to know about all, it means to know all about the target with respect of their legal compliance, with respect of their environmental compliance, with respect of their tax compliance, with respect of their economic, commercial, all other aspects are covered. This is mainly facility to understand their strength, weakness, critical strategies or critical turning points of the concerned target, etc. So this is meaning of what? Due diligence. That is, this is mainly assisting the purchasing company or investing company determining whether it will be profitable or whether it will be feasible to make the purchase of target. So moving towards the first question. Okay. So here the due diligence is conducting on behalf of C Limited. So due diligence, the main purpose of due diligence is to assist the purchaser, assist the investor to know or to find out all reasonably can about the business in which they are making investment or the business in which they are going to purchase. What are their strength and as well as weakness? Which was their critical the survival strategy that has been followed by them, etc. So all these can be understood with respect of due diligence, determining whether this purchase is feasible or not. This can be determined with the help of due diligence. So here I am discussing the answer of the first question. So legal due diligence. What is mean by this legal due diligence? Whether they are complying with all applicable laws and regulations. Operational due diligence, whether commercially, or whether they are making the maximum utilization of available resources to make their operations, whether they are commercially feasible. Financial due diligence, that we are going to discuss here. Then tax due diligence, whether they have been registered as per various various direct and indirect tax law, whether they are making the payment of tax, whether appropriate provision has been created. Environmental due diligence, whether they are conducting their operation or making the utilization of resources as per or in according to the environmental rules and regulation. Personal due diligence, it is mainly stating whether the existing employees of the concern or the organization will continue even after the acquisition. In tax due diligence, they will also evaluate the possible effect after making the acquisition. Then information system, whether the information system of the target is providing right information at the right time. Okay. So while answering to the question, first of all you should indicate the meaning of what? Due diligence, plus the purpose of due diligence, why the due diligence is to be conducted, what is the main purpose of conducting this due diligence. Plus it also helps to understand with respect to the following aspects, or the investigating accountant should follow with respect to the following. First of all, they are providing about what? Accounting policy. So they have to determine whether the financial statements are prepared or business is conducting as per or by selecting an application of accounting policy. So which are the accounting policy? Whether it is appropriate, whether the selected or whether the selected accounting policies are appropriate or not, whether they are consistently applying. That is, whether the accounting policy has been consistently applied by the concerned organization. Then they are also required to check or state whether there have any changes to the accounting policy, whether that change is appropriate, what is the effect of that change, whether it is materially affecting plus whether it has been properly disclosed. So you have to answer in this case, you have to answer in this way. First of all, what is the meaning of due diligence? Or investigating accountant should determine whether they are making the selection and application of accounting policies, whether that accounting policies is appropriate, whether they have been consistently making the application of the accounting policy, whether there exist any changes to the accounting policy, the effect, what is the effect of that changes, plus determine whether that changes has been undertaken by the target company for the purpose of making the same. What is the effect of that changes in accounting policy with respect of this acquisition? Then second one is that statutory compliance. So he is the investigating accountant. He have to prepare a list with respect of applicable laws and regulation. Investigating accountant should prepare a list of applicable laws and regulation, plus prepare a checklist to ensure the compliance, that is which are the applicable laws and regulation, and also prepare a checklist whether these applicable laws and regulations has been followed by the concerned organization. Plus one more thing, suppose they are not complying with these laws and regulation, it may lead to punitive actions, that is litigation or fine may be imposed against the concerned organization. So it will affect what? Financial statement, or it will affect what? Profitability of the concerned organization. Then management and employees. So the next point that is to be answered to the first question is what? Management and employees. First of all, investigating accountant should understand required labor force and also understand labor force that is to be retained even after acquisition, plus understand the employees or persons of the concerned organization who are willing to be continue after acquisition. Then it is also required to understand what? Job profile of the key managerial person, especially administrative and as well as managerial staff, mainly for the purpose of determining whether they have the required qualification or required qualifications. Suppose they are purchasing that organization, so the A is making the purchase of B organization, they will be also have what? Employees. So A have to determine what are their qualification, because they are continuing in A organization, whether these employees having required qualifications or required job profile of as per A or as per A's policy. Then we know that they have what? Different labor rules, regulations, etc. This may, because of this complicated laws and regulation, there may chances of happening punitive actions or litigation against the concerned organization. It means the companies. So in the given case, the purchaser or investor is also required to evaluate applicable labor laws and regulation, plus determine whether employee benefits are provided, such as not only benefit, provident fund, gratuity, ESI, these benefits are providing to the employees, plus also determine whether all eligible employees are covered, whether the payment is making appropriately, plus determine whether there exists any unfunded gratuity. In case of unfunded gratuity, it will create what? A liability. So this liability have to be assessed. The valuation of the liability should be done by what? Actuary. A reputed actuary should undertake the valuation of the liability. Then what? They are also required to determine matters with respect of compensation schemes, sales incentives, performance linked incentives, employee stock option plan, whether the company or whether the target company is providing these benefits to the employees, plus what is the pay packages to the key managerial person, because the remuneration or salary to the key managerial person will affect what? Future profit. So with respect of management and employees, they have to answer all these matters. The next point is what? History and background. That is, suppose A is going to purchase B. A will be also interested to know about what? The history and as well as background of B Limited. That is, A should begin the financial due diligence review by looking into the history of the company and background of its promoters. That is, they have to obtain what? An understanding. So they have to know about the history of company, background on promoters, along with the turning point faced by the concerned target company, survival strategy formulated and implemented by the target company, their market share, total market and their market share, their market price, their product life cycle, which are the resources used by the concerned target company for its operations, its strength and weakness. So first of all, the answer should be done in this manner. That is, first you indicate the main point and indicate what all the sub points. After discussing, I will again explain you how to write the answer. Okay. Then the next is what? Cash flow. Which are the sources from which the concerned target company is getting cash? How much they have their internal fund availability and external fund. Determine what are their requirements. Requirements also include certain commitments, right? Such as bills payable, loans, and any other financial assistance that is required to be repaid, etc. So they have to determine whether the concerned target company can fulfill their requirements. So fulfill their requirements and honor their commitments with the available internal fund, or whether they have to obtain further more external fund from the external sources. Then they also have to determine cash flow. They can undertake previous 5 or 6 years on the previous 5 or 6 years on the basis of which they can determine cash flow plus cash generating capacity of the concerned organization. Right friends? Cash flow and cash generating capacity, they can understand the trend and pattern in which they are generating the cash, which are the sources of their cash, etc. Next, it has been stated that financial statement. They have to determine whether the financial statements of the target company is prepared as per the applicable financial reporting framework. They have to make an overall analysis of the financial statement, which is including balance sheet, cash flow statements, profit and loss account, etc. And thereafter, they should examine operational result. Operational result means what? Profitability. On the basis of that profitability, they can determine the market price. They are also required to understand the trend or pattern of their profitability. They should also determine whether there exists or whether there include any extraordinary item of income or expense in the profits. So, first of all, they have to determine whether the financial statements are prepared as per the financial reporting framework, their operational result plus profitability. They have to obtain an understanding they have to understand trend or pattern of the profitability. This is possible only by taking what? The profit and loss account or such statement of income and expense of the previous 5 to 6 years. On the basis of that, they can understand what? The trend. Plus, they should also determine whether these financial statements include any extraordinary income or expense. Then the last one is what? Sorry, not last one, taxation. Actually, taxation is a separate due diligence. It is not a part of what? Financial due diligence, but it is what? Integral part of the financial it is also an integral part to determine what? The financial status. So the concerned, that is purchasing company, have to determine what? Whether tax assessment has been done by the concerned company previous year up to which they have made the tax assessment, reasons for not making the tax assessment, whether they are making the payment of taxes what? Regularly, any order pending against concerned target company, plus they are also required to determine whether they have registered as per applicable tax laws. The last one is what? Financial projection. What is meant by this financial projection? It is mainly stating that they have to obtain what? A projection from the concerned target company. This projection can be for a period of 5 years. Okay, that is obtain projections for next 5 years. This projection can be, that is they have to obtain projection in optimistic mode, pessimistic way, and as well as most likely basis. Plus they are also required, that is investigating accountant is also required to understand assumption that has been used in preparation of what, these projection, plus the sources of data which has been used for making the projection. So this is the answer of first question. I will again explain you what is mean by this. Okay, so the question was, that is the first question was what, 1 minute friends. The first question was, Sri Raghav, above 80 years old and wishes to sell his proprietary business of manufacture of specialty chemicals. C Limited wants to buy the business and appoints you to carry out what, due diligence audit to decide whether it would be worthwhile to acquire the business. What are the procedures you would adopt or you should adopt? So you should answer in this way. Due diligence means, or due diligence assists the purchasers or investor to find out all reasonably can about the business in which they are going to make investment. So as an investigating accountant, you have to consider the following aspects, or you have to focus on the following aspects. That important points are history and background, then what, accounting policies, compliance with statutory provisions, cash flow, financial statements, then what, tax, projections. These are the important points. So main point is history and background. These are all the main points, 7 main points. Then you have to elaborate with this sub point. So first of all, you should begin with meaning of due diligence, purpose of due diligence. Then investigating accountant have to focus on these aspects, history and background. Investigating accountant should obtain an understanding with respect of the history and background consisting the following aspects, or he should begin the due diligence with by understanding in history and background. Turning point, understanding what, the turning point of that target company, their survival strategy, their market share, their product life cycle, the resources that has been utilized, their strength and weakness, or whether they are making the optimum utilization of the resources. Plus they should understand the accounting policies which has been followed by the concerned target company, whether they are selected and applied appropriate accounting policies, whether they are making a consistent application of the accounting policy, whether there exists any changes with respect of application of accounting policy, what is the effect. Then statutory compliance, whether they first of all, investigating accountant should determine a list of applicable laws and regulations and prepare a checklist to ensure the compliance. If any violation is undertaken by the target company, they may impose punitive actions against the target company which may affect what, profitability. Okay, then whether the financial statements of the target company is prepared in such a manner that is providing true and fair view of the state of affairs, whether it has been prepared as per the financial reporting framework, have to obtain an understanding of the profitability and determine whether there exists any exceptional or extraordinary income or expense in the profit and loss statement. Then cash flow, they have to determine the cash flow or cash generating capacity of the target company. They can obtain a trend, or they can make an analysis of the trend or pattern by obtaining the cash flow from the previous 5 years. Then they can also determine which how much of internal fund shall be required to the company or concerned target company for fulfilling their requirements or to honor the commitments, whether they have to obtain external fund so as to meet all these. Then taxation, whether they have been registered applicable direct and indirect tax laws, whether they have been making the payment of taxes, whether all the assessments of the previous has been undertaken or not, up to which year they have undertaken the assessment, why they are not undertaking the assessment, whether they have been made the payment of taxes before the due date, on or before the due date, whether any order or penalty is pending as per tax law against the against the target company. The last one is what, projection. Right? Sorry friends. Projection. Investigating accountant may obtain what, projections in optimistic, pessimistic and most likely basis from the target company. They have to determine the assumption that has been used by the target company, along with they can determine the data and sources of the data on the basis of which this projection has been undertaken. So this is the answer of what, First question. They can also determine whether the target company is complying with the applicable laws and regulation, whether it will be feasible to undertake their business in their operational perspective, whether the existing employees, sorry, one thing that I have forgot here, what? Employees. In employees I have discussed, they have to determine what requirements of the employee, how much of employee should be retained, analysis of the job profile, applicable labor laws and regulations, employee provident fund gratuity, whether they are making the payment, whether all eligible employees are covered, plus what? Analysis of the pay packages to the key managerial person. Then they can also determine whether the information system of the target company is providing right information at the right time, whether they are complying or whether they are undertaking their operations in according to applicable environmental rules and regulations. This is the answer of first question. Moving towards the second question.